Procrastination is something that 95% of Americans admit to doing, and 5% lie about. I'll admit, I even procrastinated whenever I was working on this video, but we've been doing it for thousands of years. In fact, the Greek philosopher Aristotle even had a term for it, procrastination, which means to act against one's better judgment. But he also had a term for the opposite, cred, which means to be in power over oneself. So throughout the next 3 videos, I'm going to help you leave procrastination and reach cred. I hope you're having a great day. My name is Nick, and this is Mindful Mastery. If you haven't already, consider subscribing because this is the first video in a series that will help you master productivity. And if you know a friend or a loved one that's diagnosed with procrastination, then please share this with them before it's too late. I wanted to talk about why we procrastinate first off, because I tend to be better at managing something whenever I have a better understanding of it. So procrastination doesn't make logical sense because we are acting against our better judgment. But that's because whether we procrastinate or not tends to rely on a battle between emotions and logic. And we are awful at controlling our emotions. I want you to think about the moment right before you procrastinate. How do you generally feel? I tend to feel pretty uncomfortable because I don't want to write the essay in the fear that when my teacher reads it, they will be utterly blown away by its magnificence and have a heart attack. But right before I go and check Donald Trump's Twitter feed, in that moment, that feeling is resistance. Resistance is the primary cause for us procrastinating. That's because it's an uncomfortable feeling, and we are awful at handling uncomfortable feelings, so we run from them and procrastinate. And there are 5 main factors that contribute to our resistance. First, if we don't believe in our ability to complete something, then we will begin to fear failure, and because of that fear, we will begin to put it off. Or just because we think that it'll be so frustrating because of its level of difficulty. Second, whenever something is unstructured or confusing, we can find it difficult to start because we don't know where to start or what exactly we need to do. And third, when we don't have any motivation. If we don't see the value in doing something, then there's almost no reason for us to want to do it. The fourth is how immediate the rewards are. Eating healthy is going to be super rewarding later on in life. But you are living right now, so it's hard for you to see the benefits that it will have in the future. Comparatively, that box of chocolates looks really satisfying. Lastly, and probably most important, is the availability of distractions. This has never been more relevant than it is now, with notifications constantly going off on our phone and advertisements trying to get our attention. There's always something that is trying to distract us. These distractions offer us an escape from the feeling of resistance and a feeling of satisfaction, which is a present-based reward, compared to the future-based reward that pushing past the discomfort and working would grant us. But it makes sense that we pursue the present-based rewards because for millions of years, our ancestors pursued those in order to survive. They didn't really care about the deer they were going to catch 2 weeks from now when they didn't even have dinner for themselves for that night. It hasn't been until recently on an evolutionary scale that we have been able to look for future-based rewards and delay gratification. So we have hardly been able to adapt to delaying gratification, and technology hasn't made it any easier. But instead of using our logic to look for future-based rewards, we tend to use it to rationalize procrastinating. Some of the most common excuses that we use are that we don't think it'll take as much time as we originally planned, when more often than not, it'll end up taking longer, or we end up focusing so much on that fear of failure, so instead of failing, we would rather do nothing, even though that holds us back from succeeding. And oddly enough, whenever we begin to get overwhelmed, we try to avoid that feeling by distracting ourselves, even though that ends up with us feeling even more overwhelmed. Or we are perfectionists, and rather than doing something imperfectly, we would rather do nothing at all, even though perfection is pretty much impossible to achieve. And the one that I struggle with the most is telling myself that I'm not in the right mood right now, but my future self, he will be. Even though more often than not, my future self is the exact same to how I am right now. But whether you follow these excuses or not and procrastinate really depends on how impulsive you are. Because the more impulsive you are, the more likely you are to go after that good feeling that comes with running from the bad feeling of resistance. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. In the next video, I'm going to be going over how to prevent procrastination by talking about 4 techniques that will help decrease the amount of resistance that you feel. I'll see you there.